Welcome back to Mobility Project. Here's what we've got talking about today. One of my athletes heading to nationals this week. He's a phenomenal runner. Calls me up and says, "Hey man, my big toe is smoked right here." He's like, it's interfering my toe off. I can't hit kind of full extension. He's trying to run around it now. And the question is, what is that and what's going on? Typically, when we see inflammation in this joint between the kind of the toe and the kind of the big joint here, this is typically known as kind of turf toe, or because a lot of athletes were on a hard surface and a lot of linemen were playing in softer shoes initially. Typically in orthopedics, what they'll do is try to splint the toe or make that shoe has kind of a metal piece that kind of protects the toe and limits this dorsiflexion. The problem is, okay, we can limit that, but certainly if I'm a runner, I'm going to need my toe and I'm going to need that flexibility in that foot. So kind of two priority goals here. The first priority when I have this swollen joint is I've got to deal with the inflammation. I've got to get my athlete managing that. And since he's a runner, we're going to do what we call the 4x-numb relay. In order to complete every race every day, you've got to ice that thing 4 times. The easiest thing you can do is take an ice cube with a paper towel, and you need to rub that thing for 5 minutes. And there's not a lot of tissue around your foot here. It's a little bit thicker here, but you need to get that joint as cold as you can for 5 minutes, 4 times a day. And if you really are serious, you wipe the water off and you go ice again because the water is not as cold as the ice. So you erase the water, keep hitting that thing, and you just need to hit that joint 4 times a day to make baseline. The 4x-numb. Numb is fine. That's what we need to do. We need to pull the swelling out, block some of those pain signals. The other thing you can do is take an ice slurry and just go ahead and get that whole foot, and even including some of that plantar fascia in there. Ice till that thing gets numb. 5 minutes. You just got to do it. It's not, especially as you warm up and cool down, you can use that ice to manage that swelling in between heats as you're rolling up. So using the ice to be able to recover the joint and manage that. It's difficult. You might try to buddy tape, but that's not going to work very well. So what we've really got to do is get the athlete thinking about 2 things. One is, how am I going to restore motion in that joint and kind of deload it? And then second, what am I doing to buy slack to the tissue? So the first piece is you need to understand that one of the things that I can do for that big knuckle joint here is create distraction. So I can grab that toe and try to pull it out, or have someone pull it for me, try to create some distraction in that joint. And after I create that distraction, I want to create a little rotation. So distract that joint, and then we're trying to get some motion back in that. That's not unsimilar to what Donnie Thompson did with the wrist or the ankle, where we basically try to distract and then get some motion back. Your proprioceptors are blown out, that joint is painful. So again, if it's too painful to do this, stop pain-free. We're not trying to cause any more, or ice that thing down. Then I want to create some distraction force and add a little rotation to the limits of that excursion of that rotation. The second piece is that come on in here, Wiz, is that if I basically want to work on flexion, and so I'm going to always mobilize the joint perpendicular to the long bone here, and so as I work on flexion, I'm going to be pushing perpendicular to the joint, so I can distract and then get a little motion, block the foot here, and then just get a little movement that goes this way, back and forth. And what's happening oftentimes is I get stiff and I end up hinging, and I trash this side and pinch through here, so I distract and then try to get that thing moving by kind of just oscillating back and forth. Distract and then just oscillate back and forth. That's an easy way to kind of mitigate those feelings. Distraction with a little rotation, and then distraction with a little bit of that kind of oscillating back and forth. So that's how we can take care of the joint. You got to manage that swelling, you got to manage the symptoms. But big thing is here, it's called flexor hallucis brevis, which is a short muscle right here in the foot, kind of rises off one of the aspects of this muscle that comes down here, which means I've got to get my ball and thinking, hey, do I have a short foot kind of plantar surface problem, and can I work on that area? So I can even load, and it doesn't take much once I'm loaded on that ball to get a little stretch. And I'm like, oh, that's really stiff. It's certainly stiffer than if I just do this. So I'm loading up that little muscle, bottom of my foot, in that region, find something that feels tight in there. I can oscillate back and forth, and I can even add a little bit of that motion through there. Contract, relax, that's a valid stretch. Looking to buy slack in the whole system. Often if I'm tight here, then I'm transmitting energy here. Finally, obviously, go after heel cords, go up on the calf. What are the salient features upstream? Making sure I have full ankle range so that I'm not running off angle. Oftentimes it's not the list loading, it's this loading that makes a big difference. So I'm looking at my mechanics. A few hundred steps offloaded can be a big problem. Getting that foot to be able to roll straight through is where the answer. Second last piece. Flexor hallucis longus is a big one of the deep muscles. Posterior tib is one, some peroneals, but it runs back here. Flexor digitorum, excuse me, runs one of the deep muscles, and it runs underneath the calf here, and it's the piece that gives me the big, runs right behind this inside ankle bone and gives me the big power to flex my toe. And as I load up on that, what you'll find is that often there's this one little chunk band in there, and I like the rumble roller on this because I can kind of find that little chunky part and then put it right on that, get as much weight as I can, and then roll back and forth. And there's a little section right in the middle, and guess what? That is flexor hallucis longus. And so as soon as I can kind of tack that thing down a little bit, I can really feel, and you see how I just try to get some motion in that big toe? Of course, I can tie that whole thing in. Pain-free range, work on pain-free, and think about buying slack to that system. I wouldn't doubt that we're tight here. So that's the prescription. Good luck at the Nationals this weekend. We'll see you tomorrow.